Oh, hey there, I didn't see ya. I was just tilling the field and harvesting some corn. Come on inside, let's have a little talk. Today, we will discuss the ways in which conflict has arisen within society, as it has been the driving force behind the majority of social behaviors and change. We will start with gender inequality, as it is of the earliest forms of conflict within society. Historically, within early hunter-gatherer societies, men would hunt and women would gather, an importance and roles of which would shape all gender inequalities to follow as men misinterpret opportunities for, and portrayals of, physical and mental superiority as an actuality, allowing them to exact discriminatory control over women struggling for equality. Moving to another early human behavior, mutualism. A relationship benefiting both members of the relationship. I scratch your back, you scratch my back. Animals such as dogs were domesticated for their useful abilities such as hunting and alerting you if someone's sneaking up on you in your sleep. This behavior was in turn rewarded with things like food and love. This relationship changed drastically, however, around 10,000 years ago in a time we refer to today as the agricultural revolution. Humans of various continents began to adapt from societies of hunter-gatherers to those of agriculture, and domestication on a much greater scale began to occur, not only of animals, but also with the selective breeding and cultivation of crops. Take corn, for example. Now this little guy here is what grew naturally down in South America. There's not a lot of food here. However, seeing the potential for domestication, the Incas actually selectively bred corn until BAM! Big corn. People began to build their lives around agriculture, literally. More permanent houses to live in, fences to keep all the cows, piggies, and llamas from running away, and laws, walls, and ever-advancing weapons to safeguard our stuff from threats, both foreign and domestic. Now that last one was an important one for society, and really has been ever since, as with the adaptation to agriculture, we see one of humanity's earliest forms of commodification as animals were actually turned into possessions. And interestingly, it turns out that the word cattle is derived from the Latin root word caput, originally meaning movable personal property, especially livestock. The word is also closely related to capital in the economic sense. Well, isn't that funny? Since not everyone within society has been the proud owner of their own land and livestock, the unequal distribution of the means for the production of wealth has created hierarchies of different social classes resulting in power, wealth, and prestige for the haves, and frustration within the have-nots. Moreover, because resources such as livestock and crops have never been equally available across societies, some have been able to form thriving developed nations, while others lacking these necessities have been developmentally hindered. Along with these evolving conflicts came greed-fueled conquests and war between nations, with the captives of war historically becoming slaves to their captors. However, while slavery existed for thousands of years before the conquest of America, racism as we understand it today didn't exist. This refers to societies such as ancient Greece, wherein discrimination was based upon whether an individual was deemed civilized or a barbarian slave with no apparent awareness of a racial factor. Rather, empires viewed presumably less advanced societies as inferior. As an economic system, such as the African slave trade, many African countries would sell their own captive slaves to allied Europeans, who would then ship hundreds of thousands of African slaves to the Americas to work on huge plantations. Now in this instance, I speculate that it was due to the fact that this massive group of Americans was placed under the context of being slaves, that the societies that owned them began to envision a natural racial divide and applied discriminatory labels based on ethnicity, rather than on foreign societal underdevelopment. As the Trinidadian historian of slavery Eric Williams put it, slavery was not born of racism. Rather, racism was the consequence of slavery. Conflict within society now includes a division of society into classes of varying importance and therefore influences, ethnicities of varying societal acceptance, and a still present divide between genders, with the latter two influencing one's mobility with the former. Now, from a structural functionalist point of view, one might argue that it is these conflicts that function as motivating factors within a society. It is through this ideology that positions are seen as achieved rather than ascribed, and is centered on the dominant, successful culture blaming the victims of inequality for their own inability to succeed within a society. Well, that doesn't seem very fair. Conversely, similar to the ways geography provided unequal circumstance for human development, one might argue that it is the society that fails to produce equal opportunity for success, as basic as education privileging and encouraging different races, genders, or classes of children over others. It is at this point where society currently finds itself divided and playing the blame game over unequal circumstances. Hopefully those viewing this video 100 years from now will be able to view such things through the rear view mirror of their floating cars, driving down the road of an equal society.